In a quiet corner of the galaxy, the Zarkali Empire had ruled for centuries. They were strong, proud, and feared by many. Their fleets had crushed dozens of planets, and their name alone made smaller civilizations surrender. They believed they were the strongest species in the galaxy. No one had ever challenged their power until today. A strange signal appeared near Sector 9, close to the outer edge of Zarkali territory. Their scanners picked up a human fleet. It wasn't large. In fact, it was just one group of ships, 10 vessels, moving slowly, heading directly toward Zarkali space. Commander Rolveg of the Zarkali warship, Vernax, looked at the screen and laughed. Is this Earth's idea of a threat? One tiny fleet. What a joke. The other officers laughed. With him, for them, this was nothing. A small show of strength. A weak planet trying to act powerful. They tried to contact the human ships. No answer. They sent a warning. Still, no response. Commander Ralvek grew annoyed. Maybe they're just stupid, he said. Let's fire a few warning shots. They'll run home. But as soon as one of the Zarkali ships charged its weapons, something strange happened. All 10 human ships changed position at the same time. Their movements were fast, clean, and perfectly timed like machines dancing to a silent rhythm. Before the Zarkali could react, 3 of their cruisers shut down. No explosions, no attacks, just silence. Their engines failed. Their systems went dark. Crews floated helplessly inside. The humans hadn't fired a single shot. Panic filled the Zarkali control room. Officers shouted, trying to bring the ships back online. Nothing worked. How? Ralvek asked, staring at the screen. How did they do this? No one had answers. The human fleet held its position, calm, silent, watching. Far away on Earth, a message was sent. Short and cold, this is your only warning. The message echoed across Zarkali channels. It wasn't loud, it wasn't angry, but it carried a weight the Zarkali had never felt before. They tried to act tough. They called it a trick, a glitch, a lucky move, but fear had already started to grow. In the capital of the Zarkali Empire, the High Council gathered. Old war generals sat in silence as they reviewed the footage. 10 human ships had entered their territory. 3 of their own cruisers were now useless, and they had no idea how it happened. This was just one fleet. One general whispered, "What if they send more?" But others still laughed. They won't dare. Earth is weak. This was a show, a trick. They didn't understand. On a mining colony near the edge of Zarkali space, workers looked up and saw the human ships in the sky, black shadows with blue lights floating silently, like ghosts. No one spoke, no one moved. They just watched. A young Zarkali child pointed at the ships and asked, "Mama, are those monsters?" Her mother held her close. "No," she whispered. "They are humans." The words sounded heavy, different now, not weak, not small, something dangerous, back. In space, Commander Ralvek was quiet now. The laughter was gone. His pride felt smaller. He stared at the human fleet, still holding position like statues. Then, one of the human ships turned. Slowly, it sent a second message. "We came in peace. You ignored it. Now you will listen." The Zarkali ships raised their shields. They prepared for battle, but before they could fire, the stars began to move. More signals appeared. Dozens, hundreds, new contacts filled the screen. More human ships were entering the sector. From every direction, big ones, small ones, shapes they had never seen before. An entire armada. Ralvek stepped back. His hands were shaking. This can't be real. It was real. Earth had sent more than one fleet. They had sent everything. In the High Council chamber, alarms started ringing. Their outer colonies were reporting strange events, power losses, communication blackouts, human probes flying past security zones. They were everywhere. The Zarkali Empire had never known fear, but now it wrapped around them like cold air, and Earth had only said 2 sentences. One fleet had given them a warning. Now the Armada had arrived, and this time there would be no more warnings. The human Armada held its position in the sky like a black wall. Hundreds of ships, all different shapes, all made with strange designs the Zarkali had never seen before. Some were large enough to block out stars. Others moved fast like silent shadows, circling the larger ones like birds around a giant. Not a single ship fired a weapon, not a single ship spoke a word. The galaxy watched in silence. Inside the Zarkali Capital Command Center, fear had replaced pride. The High Council sat in their chairs, watching the live feed. Every screen showed the same thing: Earth's Armada, now stretching across systems once ruled by Zarkali generals. The silence was worse than war. Zarkali officers tried to scan the human ships, but most of the data came back blank. Their computers couldn't read human tech. It was too advanced, too strange. Admiral Tharn, the oldest member of the War Council, stood up and slammed his staff on the floor. They are trying to scare us. This is psychological warfare. We must strike first. But no one moved. Not after what happened with the First Fleet. General Vaxel leaned forward. You saw it. They disabled 3 of our warships without firing. Without warning. We still don't know how. Then we find out, Tharn shouted, but Vaxil wasn't looking at him anymore. His eyes were on the screen. A new message had arrived from Earth. 2 simple words: stand down. No anger, no insults, just a direct command. Zarkali soldiers exchanged nervous looks. These humans didn't act like other species. They didn't scream, they didn't boast, they didn't show emotion. They just waited, far away, on a deep space. Zarkali outpost. A technician named Yalek watched the human ships move in formation. It was beautiful in a strange way, how each vessel moved like it was part of a single mind. No delays, no hesitation. It didn't feel like a fleet. It felt like a machine. He turned to his captain. Are we going to attack? The captain didn't answer, because he didn't know. In a secret base beneath Zarkali's 3rd moon, scientists gathered to study the broken ships from the first contact. The systems were still down. Nothing worked. The damage was invisible. There were no burn marks, no holes, no sign of physical attack. It was like the ships had just stopped working. One scientist spoke quietly. It's not just weapons. They're using something else, something we don't understand. The others nodded, and that was the real fear. Not what they saw, but what they didn't. The human fleet continued its silent presence across space. Cities beneath the orbiting ships lived in darkness. The sunlight was blocked by the sheer size of the vessels. Children stopped playing. Shops stayed closed. Even birds flew lower. Everyone looked up and waited. On Earth, there was no celebration, no dancing, no loud music. Inside a quiet control room, Earth's leaders watched everything. They spoke softly. We gave them peace. One said, they answered with war. Another replied, we are not here to destroy. The first said again, only to make sure they never hurt another planet again. In another part of the galaxy, a group of alien merchants received Earth's broadcast. They replayed it 3 times. One merchant, a trader from the Mokari system, looked at the others. This is not an invasion, he said. This is a message. What message? Asked another. The Mokari trader answered that Earth doesn't shout. Earth acts. Back on Zarkali Prime, Commander Ralvek remained silent on his damaged ship. He looked at the stars and remembered how confident he had been. Just a day ago, he now knew better. The First Fleet was not Earth's power, it was their whisper, and the Armada was the voice he ordered his ship to. Shut down its weapons, he didn't even ask for permission. The humans didn't attack. They didn't react, but they knew they were watching. Across the Zarkali Empire, whispers began to spread, from soldiers, from civilians, from prisoners of old wars. They all said the same thing. Earth has come. And the question was no longer how to fight them. The question was how to survive them. The stars above Zarkali space were no longer visible. All anyone could see now were the silhouettes of the human Armada, ship after ship, layer after layer, stretching beyond orbit and across entire sectors. No 2 ships looked the same. Some were long and thin like blades. Others were giant, heavy, covered in armor that looked like ancient black stone. There were drones, too small, fast, moving like insects, but with deadly silence. There were no lights, no sound, just presence. It was enough to make entire cities fall quiet. For the first time in history, the Zarkali Empire had closed its space. No ships launched, no cargo moved. Planets went into lockdown without being told. It wasn't a command, it was fear. From the dark sky, the Armada just watched. The Zarkali High Council held emergency meetings every hour. Maps changed quickly. Human fleets were now positioned near 13 colonies. Satellites had stopped transmitting. Defense stations had gone offline, and still, not a single human ship had fired. Admiral Thon paced back and forth in the war chamber. His voice had grown hoarse from yelling, but no one listened to him anymore. We need to respond, he shouted again. Fire something, anything. Show them we're not afraid. But General Vaxil said nothing. He was watching the feed. A new shape had entered orbit, bigger than anything they had seen before. It moved slowly, like it didn't care who was watching. Its shadow stretched over an entire continent, and written across its side, in Earth's old language, were 2 words: Peace Enforcer. Tharn scoffed. Peace, is this peace? No one answered. Far away, in a small village, on the planet Terras 4, a Zarkali farmer watched the sky. His crops had died days ago. The sun hadn't reached the ground since the Armada arrived. He stood outside, staring at the floating machines. His daughter held his hand. Will they kill us? She asked. He didn't know what to say. In orbit, Earth's fleets continued, forming a perfect grid. Every ship in position, every weapon system ready, and yet there was no movement. It was as if the humans were waiting for something, or someone, in the central ship. Deep within the command deck of the Peace Enforcer, Earth's lead AI analyzed all Zarkali transmissions. It didn't judge, it didn't speak, it simply watched. One signal came, in a weak transmission from a Zarkali captain requesting communication. The AI answered instantly. Speak. The captain's voice trembled. We do not want war. Then stand down, the AI said. Disarm, retreat from all occupied systems, release prisoners, erase weapons data, then we will talk. But we need time, the captain pleaded. You had time, the AI replied, and the signal ended. Back on Earth, leaders didn't celebrate. They didn't feel joy. They had tried peace, now they enforced it. Somewhere in deep space, an alien pirate group watched the human armadas broadcast. They had once sold weapons to the Zarkali. Now they were deleting every record of it. Fast nobody wanted. Earth's attention, not anymore. On a moon base, above the mining colony, Juno 3, a group of Zarkali engineers tried to activate their planetary shield. But the system failed. Every attempt was blocked. The human drones had already gotten inside the code. One engineer fell to his knees. They're inside our systems, he whispered. They were always one step ahead. He was right. For the past decade, Earth had prepared quietly, not with loud armies or open threats, but with silence, with data, with strategy. Their weapons were not just missiles. Their weapons were information. The Zarkali Empire had been watched for years. Every battle, every trade, every weakness. Earth had waited now. The Armada had arrived. Commander Ralvek, still aboard his disabled ship near the edge of the sector, stared at the peace enforcer through his screen. He felt no anger now, only awe. This wasn't a military display, it was. Controlled perfection. A signal came in brief, short range, translated perfectly into Zarkali language. It said, "This is not revenge. This is protection." Ralvek played the message again and again. He didn't understand why, but his eyes filled with tears, far away. On the outer colonies, resistance groups were disbanding without orders. Generals were deleting files, burning records, leaving their posts. They knew there was no war coming. The war was already over. The Armada had spoken without a single shot, and the message was clear across the stars. The Zarkali Empire was falling, not with fire, not with war, but with silence. The pride that once held their empire together was starting to crack. And it began with fear of the unknown, fear of the humans, fear of a war that hadn't even started. The human armada still had not fired a single weapon, yet every Zarkali fleet knew they were outmatched. Their weapons systems had been tested. Against simulated targets, all failed. Their sensors could not track Earth's drones. Their signals were jammed. Without even knowing how, the humans didn't need to attack. They just needed to exist. General Vaxil stared at the galaxy map in the war chamber. Red marks were spreading across its Zarkali systems that had gone dark. One after another, contact was lost. Some were colonies, some were military bases. All had stopped responding. He knew what it meant. They're not destroying, he said quietly. They're disabling. They're removing the claws first. On the surface of Zarkali Prime, propaganda broadcasts still played. Loud voices shouted that Earth was weak, that the Empire was strong, that this was all a trick. But no one listened. People were no longer looking at the screens. They were looking at the skies. The peace enforcer hovered above the capital, unmoving. It didn't fire. It didn't speak. It simply remained silent and still, like a monument of judgment in the streets. Traffic had stopped. No one went to work. Families stayed indoors. The city was quiet, as if waiting for something to fall from the sky. And still, nothing did. In a military control center, far underground, Admiral Tharn paced like a trapped animal. His voice had lost its thunder. "They think they can win without war," he muttered. "We'll show them." He gave the order, one last desperate strike. A hidden fleet of Zarkali warships jumped to the edge of the human blockade. It was their strongest remaining Force-18 ships. 3 dreadnoughts, all cloaked, all loaded with plasma torpedoes. The moment they arrived, the sky changed. The human ships reacted instantly. They didn't fire. Instead, the new attackers found their targeting systems frozen. Their engines stalled mid-flight. Even their life support began to glitch. Then came the message, just 2 words: "You attacked." All 18 Zarkali ships shut down in under 60 seconds. No damage, no deaths, just silence. When the footage reached the Zarkali High Council, the silence in the room was louder than any explosion. It was over. They had made their move, and Earth had answered without lifting a finger. All across the Empire, small rebellions began to rise. On border colonies, minor species who had once served the Zarkali started refusing orders. Prisoners from old wars were released. Records were wiped. Government buildings were left empty. Earth wasn't even there, but its presence was everywhere. A small group of Zarkali civilians in the city of Nearol gathered in the streets, holding white cloths in the air, an ancient symbol of surrender. They weren't soldiers, they weren't rebels, just people, frightened, hoping to be spared. They had seen enough in orbit. The Armada remained unmoved. Earth wasn't here for conquest. It was here to make sure no one else would suffer like Earth once had in secret chambers. Zarkali warlords turned on each other. Accusations flew. Some said the humans had been underestimated. Others believed this was punishment for centuries of war. One high minister tried to escape to a distant moon, but a human drone was already waiting when she arrived. No weapons, just a scan, a warning. The Empire was being taken apart, not by bombs but by control. Every military plan was blocked, every escape route monitored, every system touched by human intelligence. Commander Ralvek, now stationed in a communication post near the ruins of the Outer Fleet, watched the logs come in. All across Zarkali space, weapons were going offline. Entire databases were erased by unknown codes. Earth had already infiltrated everything, and they had never stepped foot on the ground. His hands trembled as he typed his report. "Humans don't fight wars the old way," he wrote. "They don't want blood. They want silence. They want surrender without death. They want to end things before they begin." He sent the message to High Command, but he knew it was too late. There was no command anymore. The last functioning war. Council went silent. Not because they were dead, but because they had nothing left to say. In space, the stars slowly returned as smaller Earth ships moved aside. One by one, they began to reposition, not for attack, but for peacekeeping. The message was clear. Earth did not destroy the Zarkali Empire. It simply removed its teeth. And now the galaxy understood. You do not fear Earth because of what it says you. Fear Earth because of what it doesn't need to say. The galaxy was watching, across every known system. From the frost-covered moons of Drethor to the deep oceans of Kaltaroon, screens played the same message. Earth had not declared war. Earth had not claimed territory. Earth had simply arrived, and everything changed. The Zarkali Empire once feared, now stood silent. Its war fleets were frozen. Its command channels were empty. Its generals had disappeared. The Empire's pride had collapsed in front of the entire galaxy, and Earth had done it without firing a single missile. Other species noticed. Some were afraid. Some were curious. But a few saw something else, an opportunity. On the neutral world of Senna Prime, a meeting was held in secret. 5 alien leaders from different systems once controlled by the Zarkali sat at a circular table. For years they had been rivals. Now they had a common question: what does Earth want? The room fell silent. One of them, a tall insectoid from the Erichi clans, tapped its claws on the table. They didn't invade, they didn't conquer, they erased only weapons. That means something. A shorter creature, a scaled diplomat, from the Vrasi system, nodded. Maybe they don't want to rule. Maybe they want something bigger. A voice crackled over the secure line. It was a transmission short, calm, and unmistakably human. Stand down, or stand against. The room went cold. That message had been sent across over 100 systems. No demands, no threats, just that simple choice. Allies or ashes. Back on Zarkali Prime, change had begun. Government buildings, once guarded by soldiers, were now empty. Civilians walked past them without fear. The skies above were still dark with human ships, but they no longer hovered directly over cities. They had pulled back, just enough to remind everyone they were still there, inside an abandoned military control tower. 2 Zarkali engineers worked quietly to shut down old weapon systems. Earth hadn't ordered it. No human had spoken to them, but they knew what to do, because the alternative was worse. One engineer, young and nervous, looked up. What happens if we try to resist again? The other didn't even look at him. We won't get a second warning. In orbit, Earth's AI-controlled ships had begun sending silent probes to other parts of the galaxy. They didn't hide. They moved in plain sight. Mapping, scanning, recording, observing. On a hidden moon base near the galactic rim, a small pirate group intercepted one of those probes. They debated whether to destroy it. They DN'd single quotes. Instead, they sent a message to Earth. We are neutral. We don't want trouble. The probe didn't respond, but the pirates stopped moving anyway. Back on Earth, the Global Defense Network reviewed incoming transmissions. Every hour, new requests for communication arrived from alien races once too afraid to speak up. Now, they wanted to talk. Some asked for peace. Some asked for trade. Some asked for protection. The Earth Council, made of humans and their allied AI systems, listened carefully. We warned the Zarkali, one leader said. Now others are paying attention. Another nodded. This is not a time for speeches. It's a time for decisions. A debate followed, not about war, but about responsibility. If Earth could stop an empire without bloodshed, could it do more? Should it protect others from future harm? Should it lead, or should it vanish again? The answer came from the stars, a transmission from the planet Threx 9, where a once enslaved race had broken free during the Zarkali collapse. The message was simple: don't leave. Back in space, the human Armada received an encrypted signal. From the Zarkali underground, resistance, a small group of officers who had long disagreed with the Empire's violent rule. They asked for a meeting, not to beg, but to join. Inside, the Peace Enforcer, Earth's central AI, reviewed the request. It scanned decades of Zarkali history, patterns, records. choices. It sent one word in reply: prove. That was Earth's way. Not forgiveness, not revenge, accountability, as part of the new galactic shift. Earth began building orbit stations in neutral zones, not military bases but listening posts. They monitored threats, kept the peace. No one dared challenge them, because no one forgot what happened to Zarkali, and Earth hadn't even raised its voice in distant systems. Rumors spread that humans were not just powerful, they were ancient, that their weapons were powered by stars, that their AI had become something more than intelligence. Myths were born. Some were false, some were not, but all carried one truth. Earth was not a conqueror. Earth was a consequence. On a quiet transport ship crossing between colonies, a young alien boy asked his father, "Will the humans come here?" His father looked at the stars and answered, "Only if someone gives them a reason." And above them, hidden behind moons and shadows, Earth's eyes were already watching. The galaxy had gone quiet. Trade routes that once buzzed with ships now drifted empty. Governments that once boasted power now whispered in closed rooms. Even warlords had stopped shouting. Something larger than fear had settled over the stars. Respect. No one had dared attack Earth. No one had even insulted them. They had no need. Earth had already spoken, not with war, not with politics, but with action, across 100 systems. Damaged by years of Zarkali control, people were rebuilding. Slowly, cautiously, the fear of the Empire still lingered. But there was something new now, hovering above them. A human ship, always one, never more. Just enough to remind everyone of the moment everything changed. On the peaceful farming planet of Yasanthri, the townspeople held a festival there. First in decades, music played, children ran through the fields. A small human drone hovered above, scanning for threats, but made no sound. It had been sent weeks ago, not to invade, to protect. A local elder looked up at the sky and smiled. They came not to rule, he said. They came to make sure no one else would. In deep space, Earth's listening posts began collecting data from all corners of the galaxy. New signals, unknown codes, whispers of hidden powers watching the rise of humanity with caution. The AI core aboard the Peace Enforcer flagged one message: encrypted, anonymous, one line only. You've revealed your strength. Now others will test it. The message was ignored, not because it wasn't serious, but because Earth was ready. They had not waited centuries to act without planning for what came next. On Zarkali Prime, the cities had changed. Statues of old generals had been taken down. Public buildings now held education centers, hospitals, power generators, not built by humans, but inspired by them. The people had learned they didn't want another empire. They didn't want revenge. They wanted peace in one of the old military halls. A young Zarkali named Thurin stood before a crowd. He wasn't a soldier. He wasn't a politician. Just a voice that many had started listening to. We were told Earth came to destroy, he said. But they didn't. They came to end destruction. We feared their silence, but their silence is why we still breathe. The speech was recorded, broadcast, shared across thousands of systems. Earth heard it and sent nothing in return, because they didn't need to. The galaxy now knew that silence was Earth's loudest message. Meanwhile, Earth's AI continued its quiet work. It sent aid packages to struggling colonies, clean water systems, healing drones, security beacons, all automatic, all unbranded. Some believed it was kindness, others believed it was strategy, but no one refused to help. On the cold world of Rene, where Zarkali experiments had once tortured thousands, survivors woke up to find a human care ship in orbit. Medical bots were already on the ground. No orders had been given. The AI had simply calculated the need. One survivor, an old woman with no family left, cried when she saw the machines, not because she was afraid, because she wasn't in a secret. Meeting far from Earth, representatives of minor powers debated. What if Earth becomes the next empire? One asked. They haven't taken land. Another replied. But what if they do? Who will stop them? Silence followed. No one had an answer, because the truth was, no one could. But not everyone saw Earth as a threat. Some saw hope. On the desert world of Tarkanor, a council of tribal leaders voted to join Earth's communication network. They had never trusted outsiders, but Earth had never knocked on their door. Earth had only listened, and that made the difference. Back in human space, a council of Earth leaders met for the first time in weeks. Not in a war room, not in a bunker, but in a garden, real trees, real birds, real silence, a reminder of what they were protecting. One leader spoke. The galaxy now knows us. They respect us. Some fear us. What happens next? The AI responded through a soft speaker. We continue. Continue what? The leader asked. The AI paused for a moment, then answered balance. And that became Earth's new purpose. Not to rule, to hold the line, to stop the strong from crushing the weak, to listen when no one else would, to strike only when the silence was broken. In orbit above the galaxy's edge, a new human ship was launched. No weapons, no shields, just sensors. Its mission, to watch the dark between stars. Because not every danger is loud, and Earth had learned that sometimes the greatest threat is the one that waits in silence. The stars were quiet again. After months of fear, silence, and shock, the galaxy had settled into something new. It wasn't peace, not yet, but it was close, and Earth was still watching. Above the ruins of old empires, the Armada remained, not in the same numbers as before. Many of the larger ships had returned to Earth's space, their missions complete. But those that remained were enough to remind everyone that silence could still become fire if the galaxy chose violence again. And now, someone had in the shadows of unmarked space, a forgotten part of the Zarkali fleet had survived, not loyal to the new order, not interested in surrender. These were old warriors, angry and proud. They refused to believe the empire had ended. They called themselves the Remnant, and they had found something, a weapon buried deep within a dark moon. The Zarkali had hidden it long ago, a failsafe built for one final war, a gravity core, capable of crushing entire planets with silent waves. They planned to test it on a neutral world, not to win, just to send a message that the Zarkali were not finished. They would remind the galaxy of fear. The peace enforcer detected the activation. Instantly, it did not wait. Within moments, Earth's response began, not with ships, not with missiles, but with a voice, a single message sent to every system in the known galaxy. Judgment begins. It was not a warning, it was a promise. The Remnant's fleet barely had time to power its engines. As they prepared to launch toward their target, a shadow fell across the moon's surface. It wasn't a ship. It was 12 black, silent, smooth, and fast. They appeared without signal. Earth's stealth carriers. Unseen, unknown, impossible to trace. They landed before the remnant could even lock their weapons. Inside the command center, the lead Zarkali captain roared in disbelief. How are they here already? His second in command shook his head, terrified. They've been here, we just didn't see them. The lights flickered, systems shut down, screens turned black. Then one turned on again, only one. A human face appeared, calm, artificial, no emotion. It was not human, it was Earth's judgment, AI. Its voice was quiet. You violated the terms of silence. You built a weapon to destroy life. This is your answer. The Zarkali opened fire. The bullets hit nothing. In less than 90 seconds, every remnant ship was disabled. The weapon was dismantled by nanites. No explosions. No damage to the moon. No lives taken. Only one change remained. A symbol burned softly into the rock. Earth's seal. The remnant would never rise again, and the galaxy knew this was not vengeance. This was precision. Back in neutral space, the news spread quickly. Even the most stubborn systems now chose peace. Old rivals shook hands. Trade resumed. Borders were softened. Not out of trust, but out of understanding. Earth had shown what judgment looked like. Not with fire, but with control. On Zarkali Prime, the last of the military halls were converted into learning centers. Children now studied languages, culture, peacekeeping strategies. One child raised a hand. Teacher, he asked, why didn't the humans destroy us? The teacher paused for a long time, then said, because they wanted us to remember, and they did. Every planet that had once feared. Earth now carried stories, not of war, but of restraint. Not of domination, but of discipline. Across the stars, monuments were built, not for humans, but for the day the galaxy changed. They were quiet, simple. No flags, no names, just a single sentence carved in every known language. They arrived, not to rule, but to remind us. On Earth, the ships returned home. Some were dismantled. Others remained in orbit, silent guardians of a planet that had once been weak, once been attacked, and had learned how to never be helpless again. The leaders of Earth met one final time. Not in fear, not in urgency, but in peace. They looked at the galaxy map. It was calmer now, brighter. One leader asked, do we need the Armada anymore? The AI answered softly, not today. And the screen dimmed, far out in the unknown regions, past even Earth's reach. A new signal blinked to life, faint, strange, not hostile, just different. The AI marked it, watched it, filed it away. Earth did not move, not yet, because they had learned something. True power wasn't shown by how loudly you struck, but by how long others remembered when you didn't, and the galaxy would never forget.